Single dad rents a room to a college girl. He didn't know she was a millionaire's daughter the night Daniel Harper nailed the small white sign to the wall outside his modest home. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from desperation. Room for rent was not just an offer. It was his last lifeline. 3 months behind on mortgage payments, a refrigerator that hummed louder than it cooled, and a 7-year-old daughter who needed new asthma medication had pushed him to the edge. He never imagined that the quiet knock on his door the next evening would change everything he believed about pride, kindness, and second chances. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing good when no one is watching, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Stories like this remind us that even in our darkest hours, compassion can rewrite the ending. Daniel had been raising his daughter Lily alone since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. Grief had hollowed him out, but responsibility forced him to stand. He worked double shifts as a warehouse supervisor, coming home bone-tired but still kneeling beside Lily's bed every night to read her favorite stories. He skipped meals so she wouldn't notice the pantry thinning. He sold his late wife's jewelry to cover hospital bills. Pride was a luxury he could no longer afford, which is why renting out the spare bedroom felt like swallowing broken glass. When the knock came, he opened the door to find a young woman standing beneath the porch light. She looked barely 20, with soft blonde hair pulled behind her ears and eyes that held a strange mix of fear and determination. She carried a single suitcase and a backpack slung over one shoulder. Her name was Emily Carter, a college student starting her semester nearby. She spoke politely, almost cautiously, explaining that she needed a quiet place to stay. No parties, no trouble, just a room and privacy. Daniel studied her for a long moment. He had promised himself he would be careful. Letting a stranger into the home where his daughter slept felt risky. But there was something sincere in her posture, in the way she avoided eye contact yet stood her ground. He showed her the small room at the end of the hallway, plain walls, a single bed, an old wooden desk. It wasn't much, but it was clean. She smiled softly and said it was perfect. The first few weeks passed quietly. Emily kept to herself, leaving early for classes and returning late with stacks of books. She paid rent on time, always in cash, neatly folded into an envelope. Daniel noticed she dressed simply, jeans, sweaters, worn sneakers. Nothing about her hinted at wealth or privilege. If anything, she seemed like someone trying to stay invisible. Life, however, didn't slow down its punches. One afternoon, Daniel received a final notice from the bank. If he didn't make a significant payment within 30 days, foreclosure proceedings would begin. He stared at the paper while Lily colored at the kitchen table, humming to herself. The walls of the house felt thinner that day, as if they were already preparing to disappear. He tried to pick up extra shifts, but the warehouse had cut overtime. He sold his old guitar, the last piece of his past life. Still, the numbers didn't add up. The weight of failure pressed down on him, not because he feared losing the house, but because he feared failing Lily. Every night after she fell asleep, he sat alone in the dark living room, calculating and recalculating, hoping the math would somehow change. Emily began to notice the exhaustion in his eyes. She saw the unopened mail stacked on the counter, the way he forced a smile at dinner when Lily talked about school. One evening, she found Lily coughing heavily on the couch while Daniel searched frantically for her inhaler. Without hesitation, Emily drove them to the pharmacy when the prescription needed refilling and Daniel's card was declined. She quietly paid for it before he could protest. Daniel's pride flared. He insisted he would repay her, his voice tight with embarrassment. Emily simply nodded, saying she understood what it meant to struggle. There was a sadness in her expression that suggested she knew more about hardship than her gentle appearance revealed. Days later, a black luxury car pulled up outside the house, its polished surface reflecting the modest neighborhood like a mirror from another world. Daniel stepped outside, confusion turning into alarm as a sharply dressed man emerged from the back seat. The man introduced himself as Richard Carter, Emily's father. In that moment, Daniel's stomach dropped. The pieces rearranged themselves in his mind: the cash rent, the privacy, the careful simplicity. Richard Carter was not just wealthy, he was one of the most powerful real estate developers in the state. Daniel had seen his name on billboards and news headlines, and the young woman renting his spare room was his daughter. Daniel felt anger and betrayal twist inside him. Had this all been some kind of social experiment, a joke, a way for a millionaire's daughter to experience normal life? When Emily stepped out behind her father, her face pale but steady, the truth unfolded slowly. She hadn't told him because she wanted to live without the shadow of her father's wealth. She wanted to know who she was beyond private jets and charity galas. She had chosen his listing precisely because it was ordinary, real. Richard's presence, however, wasn't about disapproval. He had come because he had seen something in his daughter that he hadn't seen in years: purpose. She had told him about Daniel, about the single father who skipped dinner so his child could have seconds, about the man who apologized for things